Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Let's take a look at our space weather conditions. Right now, solar wind speeds are elevated at 473.9 kilometers per second with a density of 5.9. And I know you really can't see it, but technically there still is a sunspot that is on the Earth side of the star. It's in the northwestern part, and I'll show you when we go to our space weather section at thegrandsolarminimum.com. Right now, if this sunspot fades away into the western limb, we do not have any more sunspots to speak of. This one right now is only a sunspot number of 11. Again, pretty weak. Solar minimum like sunspots here. These are just not very big, very weak sunspots. We did have a few days last week without sunspots, 4 days in a row. 36 now for the total spotless days in 2021. And will we have any more here soon? Well, we'll take a look here just quickly. But first, our TCI is coming in at 6.38. And the KP indice is at a 3, and yep, that's right. We did see a 5 earlier that put us in the storm of a G1. Very minor, very brief. Nothing major here as far as impacts towards Earth or the climate today, just because we had a very weak geomagnetic activity today. That was brief, did not last very long. So, cosmic radiation. A few days ago, and it's been a while since we broadcasted, so I apologize, but last week we broadcasted, and we saw values at 10.5% as the dosage rate. And in the last 48 hours, we've seen a drop of more than 0.5% in the cosmic radiation dosage rate, but still, it's sitting at 9.9%. And to me, it still shows that we have a weak magnetosphere, even though we're technically out of solar minimum and we're supposed to be upticking towards the next maximum, which is scheduled to arrive somewhere around mid-2024, 2025. And we're supposed to start seeing these frequent solar storms, geomagnetic activities, more frequently, a little bit more intense. And we had cosmic radiation dosage rates as low as 6.9% at one point. I thought, wow, we're really pulling out of this. You know, the magnetic field is strengthening pretty good. But to see cosmic radiation dosage rates above 8% right now is still pretty solar minimum like, as you can see. I mean, look at the star right now. Very weak coronal holes, but it's peppered with tiny coronal holes at this time. Several parts of the region of the sun. Very little activity. Those are not sunspots there in the southern region that's about to be Earth-facing. But just very quiet overall conditions from the sun right now. And we have an excellent piece to talk about here in a little bit about the connection of solar cycles and El Nino. Let's head over to thegrandsolarminimum.com and check out some more space weather stats. There you see the G1 storm, very brief, less than an hour. Not a lot of activity. Solar proton flux was weak as well. This is just a weak little storm. Nonetheless, again, when you look at this, the big picture of this, folks, look at this. This does not look like a star that is waking up from a slumber. This star is sleeping in. Very little activity, not much to speak of as far as coronal holes either. And I know you're probably thinking, where's the sunspot they're talking about? That's it right there, where my blue arrow is. That is AR 2813. Zoom this out. Oh, we have the Stop, drop, and roll satellite adjustment there. But no, let's check it out. This is where the AR2813 is turning out. Now, we might have something here, but usually at SPACEWEATHER.com, Tony Phillips and company are pretty good about showing us a preview. If we should expect a sunspot or not, it'll usually tell us. It'll circle the area. This is potential. As of right now, we are going to be blank what looks like for another couple of days unless we get a spontaneous activity. My bet is going to be here in the southern region, just now piercing the eastern limb. That's going to be my bet. This one's been across the eastern limb now for over a day. It is not even getting a circle of interest. So I'm not so worried about this right here, but this could, and it's near a coronal hole, which is interesting. And let's just pretend for a minute that this particular active region becomes a sunspot and releases a magnetic filament from that sunspot region. And it's right next to a coronal hole that is spewing out solar wind. Now, does that increase or double the impact of that filament release, that CME? And it could. And right now, with weak magnetosphere as we have it right now, something like that would be a risk. Now, I'm not saying this puny little bright spot here is going to do that. I'm just saying it's possible. I know we've talked to Lee Wheelbarger about things like this, and that's one of his concerns is a sunspot near a coronal hole snapping out of CME, along with solar wind pushing particles at 550 to 600 kilometers per second. That's pretty fast as far as miles per hour as well. I think it's right around 1 million miles an hour, close to it. So upcoming space weather from our star is quiet. And could that indicate cooler temperatures? Well, it's possible. And, I know folks over in the UK right now are not happy about this cold weather that they're experiencing. And it's April, and this happens, Again, the sun looks like it's sleeping in from its last slumber. And Old Man Winter is overstaying his visit in some parts here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that does not make my dogs happy at all. So I don't blame them. They're ready to get outside and enjoy the warmth once again. All right, let's move on to a few things. First, let's talk about this new study. This is a couple days old, but circumstances, I apologize. We haven't been able to broadcast as much as we'd like. We're kicking it into overdrive to get our home ready for actual live-in here within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And it's just been pretty crazy stuff. But again, we're prepping the house with proper insulation, new plumbing, new electricity, you name it, new drywall, of course. And we know that we have some cold winters on the way. So we're going to make sure that we will stay warm in the years to come. But tonight, this article right here, and it's everywhere. This came out a couple days ago. But this is huge because the biggest argument from the AGW crowd is, where is your studies that show that the sun impacts the climate? And here we have it, finally. Well, not just, this is not the first one, but this one is gaining the most attention. And I'm going to go ahead and read from this because it's not a very long article here. But a new study shows a link between the end of solar cycles and a switch from El Nino to La Nina events in the Pacific Ocean, indicating that solar variability can trigger seasonal weather variability on Earth. If the connection holds up, it could improve predictability of largest El Nino and La Nina events. What does that mean? Well, they will be able to look at the solar cycle and see how weak it was and compare other weak solar cycles to their empirical data. Now listen to what they found here. Energy from the sun is a major driver of the entire Earth system and makes life on Earth possible, says co-author Scott McIntosh, a scientist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. Even so, the scientific community has been unclear on the role that solar variability plays in influencing weather and climate events here on Earth. This study shows there's a reason to believe it absolutely does, and why the connection may have been missed in the past. In this new study, the researchers relied on more accurate 22-year clock for solar activity from the sun's magnetic polarity cycle, which they outlined as more regular alternative compared to the 11-year solar cycle. And this was in several companion studies. The 22-year cycle starts when oppositely charged magnetic bands that wrap the sun appear near the polar latitudes. Over the cycle, the bands migrate toward the equator, causing sunspots. The cycle ends with the bands meet in the middle, annihilating one another as what's called a terminator event. These terminators give the exact guidepost for the end of one cycle and the start of the next. After the team imposed the terminator events back over sea surface temperatures in tropical Pacific dating back to 1960, they found that 5 events took place between that time and 2010-11, all coincide with the switch from El Nino to La Nina events. The end of the most current solar cycle, which is happening now, is also coinciding with the beginning of a La Nina event. You guys can go to watchers.news for the graphs and the charts. It says here, we are not the first scientists to study how solar variability may drive changes to the Earth system, but we are the first to apply the 22-year solar clock. The result, 5 consecutive terminators lining up with a switch in El Nino oscillation, is not likely to be a coincidence. The researchers also found that there was only a 1 in 5,000 chance or less that all 5 terminator events in the study would coincide with the switch in ocean temperatures. A 6th terminator event and the corresponding start of a new solar cycle in 2020 has also coincided with a La Nina event. If further research can establish that there is a physical connection and that changes on the sun are truly causing variability in the oceans, then we may be able to improve our ability to predict El Nino and La Nina events, says McIntosh. Now, what that really means, too, is the biggest argument from the AGW is that climate change, the sun, does not have a strong enough influence. And it's kind of like how this group over here, the cooling community, we know that man puts in 0.004% CO2 in the atmosphere. That's man's contribution. And the AGW sees it differently. That the sun only puts in probably about the same effort in its impact on the climate. Now, this study points out that there are 6 terminator events that coincide with solar cycles ending and beginning with La Nina, from an El Nino to La Nina switch. So for all of you out there who are AGW and don't believe in natural solar cycles and believe that the temperature change is caused by oceans, and the reason why the ocean's temperature change is changing because they think of all the pollution, well, no. There's studies now, new research is coming to light that is showing us that it starts with the sun. The sun's activity dictates our system here on Earth, not just the climate, but earthquakes, volcanoes. To me, we are starting to see the truth unravel right before our eyes, slowly. It seems like since 2018, they've been trying to slowly disclose solar cycles being the main driver of the climate. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of retooling that these Green New Deal policies need to be done, especially when they find out that these cycles, and this is research that should be brought to the government and say, look, we get cooler and hotter because what's happening with the sun, and it coincides with the ocean. It causes what happens with the oceans. Our friend Scott Rose does great work on ENSO, talking about the 3.6 year events that we do see, and they line up. The last time we were below baseline, like we are right now from the UAH, it was about 3.6 years ago. And you keep looking back, and there's that 3.6 years where we see that bottom out. So slowly but surely, we are starting to see the disclosure that solar cycles affect Earth's climate. They affect the oceans. They trigger these events. The sun triggers these events. And just like when it's warm in El Nino, it's cold during La Nina. We're showing that proof. The ice growth in both polar regions. Antarctica had a very cold summer, about ready to dip into their winter down there. The Arctic is not really melting as it should at this time of the year. It's starting to melt, but not as usual drop as it has in the past couple of years. It's been pretty dramatic, actually. So, hang on a second, folks. So anyway, win-win for the community. And some of you will probably think, well, Jake, what's the big deal? Who cares if it's man that causes it or the sun? Well, why I care is the policies that are being developed, and because of the government hijacking the climate and blaming the wrong reason to fit their agenda to change policy in this country and really around the world. I mean, how is it fair that the United States and 192 other nations participate in this Paris Treaty for this climate? China doesn't participate. What they do is they pay a tax, a carbon tax, for all the CO2 they burn. So as long as they can pay up, they don't have to be in this pact. They're paying their dues. And we're reinvesting the money supposedly for green energies and new technologies. Sure. I'm sure that's what's happening. It's not going into the pockets of people like Al Gore, who, by the way, these people like Al Gore, who push these Green New Deal policies and then buys billions of dollars worth of shares for, I think it's Whole Foods, Beyond Meat company, the fake meat company. This is not a coincidence, folks. With the new regulations that are coming with the Green New Deal, these fake meat companies are going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, especially if the government finds enough radical leaders to stay in place for the next 4 to 8 years to actually put it in play. Now, I don't think they're going to be able to get it done in 4 years, the Green New Deal policy, which is a bonus for the coaling community. And again, why is this a big deal? Because I don't feel like it's fair that I'm paying tax dollars to fund these operations that do nothing for the environment. They may improve breathing air quality and drinking water quality, but it's not going to save the planet from climate change. I saw the most ridiculous picture today of a hatchback electric car that was pulling a mini trailer about the size of one of those really tiny U-Hauls, maybe about half of that size. And it was a generator that held, I don't know, so many liters of fuel so that you could plug your car in while you're driving around, and all that's running is the generator. So it's just the generator giving off the diesel fuel, emissions, like what? Like, why are we stop building cars for that have gasoline engines if we're just going to put gasoline engines on wheels behind them? That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And whoever came up with the concept is out of their minds. Do people understand that, even if you do have an electric car right now, you have to plug it in at night to charge it, right? Where is that power coming for right now as we speak? That's right. Your coal plants, natural gas, oil. Very little power right now that we get on our grid is coming in through solar and wind. Very little. I'll give you 25% at best on the grid of solar and wind. The rest is natural gas, coal, and oil. Now, they think by eliminating fossil fuels that this will reverse climate change and we won't turn into a hothouse. And I'm here to tell you right now that we have not even implemented a policy for this climate change stuff from the Green New Deal. We haven't even put any laws in place yet, and we're already dropping in temperature. So how is it that we're dropping in temperatures, but we haven't stopped producing the emissions that supposedly cause it? We haven't even put any of these laws in place yet. I tell you, the AGW is running out of excuses. And then what the biggest thing is that this lie is held up because of how much money has been given out in grants, you name it. Research grants. Can you imagine how many billions of dollars the government has wasted on blaming CO2 and man as the driver of the climate? A study came out just a couple of weeks ago that showed the climate was 6 degrees warmer 500,000 years ago. And this was on an AGW website trying to say, well, if it was this hot 500,000 years ago, we better watch out. No, that's not what that means. The fact that it was 6 degrees warmer 500,000 years ago globally just tells me that there are natural cycles where this planet goes through it. Now, you can say, oh, come on, you're telling me that we're alive for the 1 in 500,000 year warm before it goes into... Absolutely. Absolutely we are. Think about it. We have satellite technology. We can monitor the sun every day. We get to watch these space weather events as they unfold. The imagery, the cameras, the telescopes, the things that we have at our fingertips to watch. Yeah, I do believe that we are living in once-in-a-lifetime times right now with the pandemic, with the solar events, with climate, earthquake, volcanic, you name it. All these cycles are just overlapping each other, from the Milankovitch to grand solar minimum. I mean, it's ridiculous on how many cycles we are actually seeing that are coinciding. And again, the best part about this paper, this is research. This is research that we get behind here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. This is the kind of stuff that we've been talking about for 4 years. The sun affecting the temperatures of the oceans. The ENSO cycles. This is the beginning. This is the stepping stone of saying, all right, enough with this net zero carbon by 2035 crap. They can't explain why the temperature is dropping already when we haven't even put one Green New Deal policy into law yet. Yet we sit just barely below baseline for the month of March. Nonsense, I say. Yukon sets new daily snow record, nearly 300% of normal. This is in Canada. Whitehorse City in Yukon, Canada registered 27.5 inches of snow on the ground on April 4th, 2021. The area's most snowfall on record for the day and almost 300% of normal snowfall. The snowpack usually peaks around 11.8 inches by late April. The snow base would be near zero. And they get about 2 feet or more of snow on the 4th of April. Again, folks that understand El Nino and La Nina and solar minimum and how lower solar activity creates colder weather seasons. It doesn't warm up quite as much during those years of low solar activity. Yeah, we broke some heat records here and there. I'm not saying that goes away completely, but it sure feels like we keep seeing more and more of the cold stuff. Just my experience here. And another part of the low solar activity, believe it or not, when we talk about KP indices being low, like between the 0 and 2, with an Earth-facing coronal hole, we have the risk for earthquakes. And we've had some very favorable conditions for earthquakes, but a swarm of earthquakes rattled the Los Angeles area in California on Monday, April 5th, following a 4.0 earthquake. East of Lenox, the USGS received more than 7,400 I felt it reports. Now, by 1500 UTC, around 40 aftershocks shook the Inglewood and Lenox area, according to the USGS physicist Paul Caruso, noting that the main shock was pretty deep for California, since quakes in the area are usually about 3 miles deep. The foreshock and flurry of aftershocks occurred at around the same depth. Here's a map of where the quakes were felt. Check this out. USGS earthquake expert Dr. Lucy Jones said the 4.0 quake was powerful enough to be felt by most people awake in LA, adding that it probably was not any mapped faults. It's such a small fault that it isn't noticeable, Jones said. Inglewood resident Lori Campbell, who lives 2 blocks from the Forum near the quake's epicenter, said she felt 2 strong jolts, but not a rolling like usual. No damage has been reported. However, residents have reported power outages, although a representative for Southern California Edison said no service had been interrupted. So, go to watchers.news if you want to watch the footage here. And more severe weather to hit the south. It's that time of year, but we're here reporting on this. And this all starts, well, let me go back here. So I'll tell you where this all starts. Let's go to our GFS really quick. There is an upper level energy that's coming in from the northwest. And it's starting right up here tonight into Thursday, this right here. So there's a lot of energy here in the upper northwest, okay? And this will dive down here towards the Midwest. Along the south will be a stalled out front, boundary front. Will be stalled out right down here. So this is why they think that we will see a combination of severe weather on Friday and Saturday night. And as I put this in motion, you'll see that snow turn into that low pressure right there over, hang on. Right here over Iowa. This is where the low pressure is. So we got high pressure. Now this GFS run actually has this a little higher. This is the stalled out frontal system, and that's the low upper level energy that's supposed to really fuel these severe storms, possibly for Saturday and Friday and Saturday across the south. So that's why I was a little confused looking at this run here. GFS has got this a little bit more north, but still you can see these storms firing up across the south. So that is what we're expecting Thursday into Thursday night. A marginal risk. It's not a real crazy amount, but there are a lot of folks who think that hail, torrential downpours, there will be a flooding risk with this. Isolated tornadoes can't be ruled out. Damaging wind gusts as well. And this is for Friday evening into Friday night. If you live anywhere from Austin, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Memphis, and Jackson, Mississippi, heads up. And this is, again, the big threat will be wind and flooding. Hail also in the picture, but tornadoes will be isolated, if any at all. Then Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening, we see this all shifting west, or east, I should say. Jackson, Mississippi, being the western edge of this, through Mobile, Alabama, all the way to Montgomery and to Tallahassee as well. New Orleans also in the red. And these are just basically torrential downpours and damaging winds. No tornado risks or hail threats for even that matter. So the worst of this looks to be on the Friday evening, Friday night. Saturday, still a chance for severe thunderstorms, but not as severe. All right, let's take a look at our first crop report of 2021. And it is in, let's see if I can zoom. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. All right, so this is the first crop report of the year, and there's nothing really to report. I just wanted to show you how this is going to work. There's the corn percent planted right now. You see here 1% in Kansas, 2021, April, it's 2% altogether. Let's see, last week that information wasn't available. The 5-year average is supposed to be 3% for this time of year. So as you can see, that's how this works. So this is what we are now. This is what we usually have. So you can see the plant is down very, very slight. Again, these are very early numbers. Texas is the only one that can really report. They have 56% planted, 55 for April 4th. This is the previous year. 56 was planted last year. So, I mean, we are up in Kansas by 1%. We're down 1% in Texas. And the 5-year average is still 53. So we're still up. And that's likely due to last year. So not too shabby in Texas, but everybody else, I mean, it's early, right? North Carolina had 5% in the ground by now. We only have 1%. The 5-year average is also 5%. So we're down 4% in North Carolina early. Again, this is real early. And these are very minimal numbers. But I just wanted to show you guys that we will start reporting on the crop reports. Once again, there's the rice, oats. Also, we usually stick around with the corn. Sugar beets will show that as well. And I thought we had soybeans as well. I think that comes later on. And then there is the winter wheat. And this is winter wheat by condition. Right now in Colorado, over 30% of the wheat is in poor to very poor condition. 39% of it is in fair condition. So if you put those two together, you've got mediocre wheat at best. And I know our friend Matt Bros in Nebraska had some bad news on some of his wheat crops. Now, again, you're going to see that fair and poor to very poor number stick closer together. Now, they actually, Nebraska did show 38% good, 2% excellent. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, so far the winners in excellent condition winter wheat. So, but as the week goes by, every Wednesday we do this crop report. And we will show you guys how good the plant is, and then it'll start to show us also plants emerging from the soil. Let's take a look at days suitable for farming conditions to work, anyway, to plant. Vermont not looking so hot right now, but the rest of the Northeast not too bad. New York, I can vouch for them. It is 3 days because the soil is still pretty soft. A lot of moisture from the winter snow this year. 2.5 days in Pennsylvania, 1 day in the Pacific, or I'm sorry, the Atlantic. Jeez, I need a cup of coffee. Mid-Atlantic region, not so hot. New Jersey, 5.5 days if you have farming land out there. And then you get into the areas where the quality of the farming is done, except across the South where we're dealing with flooding and wind damage and hail damage and tornadoes. That is also hindering farmers. If you look at Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee are affected the most right now in the South. Across the Plains states, the Central Plains, and the Northern Plains, not too bad. Minnesota being the worst of it right now. 3.9 days of suitable work in the fields, and then you go out west and all week long, folks. So get your butts out in the field, I guess. But the worst part right now has got to be the Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley through the South, Mississippi, Alabama. With the rest of the country looking good as far as getting ready to plant and get going in those fields in the coming days. So that's how we'll pretty much look at the crop reports on Wednesdays on our broadcast. We'll have to change the schedule a little bit to make sure that we're doing that on Wednesday nights with the crop update. And that is also available by clicking on our Grand Solar Minimum. If you go to our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com, and you go to the top of the screen here where it says GSM Resources, click on Weekly Crop Reports, and it automatically takes you to the PDF itself. So you can just scroll on the side what you want to look at, what data you want to check out. And if you've looked at this report enough, you'll know what it is by just looking at this right there. That's how I know the progress and conditions. And then suitable days for work. Those are the two most important charts we watch here at the Grand Solar Minimum. Why do we watch it? Because during Grand Solar Minimums, we see shorter growing seasons and longer winters. And that is being proven as we speak right now. If you want to talk about current events in the climate, like I said, our friends across the pond are complaining of some pretty cold temperatures right now. And, we got some pretty decent weather in the Northeast, but does it stay around? Or do we go back to a sort of late March-like feeling here close to mid-April? Let's take a look at our GFS forecast. There's a little bit of that severe weather we were talking about. More snow for the Northwest. Rain finally arriving into the Northeast by Sunday. It's been pretty dry all week. I'll take it. It's been a horrible winter as far as snow and cold. Nice to see the sun for 5 days in a row and temperatures in the high 60s. That rain in the south moves off into the ocean. Another low pressure system trying to drive its way in from Canada through New York. On Tuesday, April 13th, another disruption across the northern plain states, Minnesota, North Dakota, expecting snow into Wisconsin and northern Indiana as well for April 13th into the 14th. That's right, more snow in Colorado also developing across the Rockies into the northern plains and the Dakotas. Look at that. That is April 16th. So Denver, you may not be done with your snowfall just yet. Look at that. That's a couple days. That's into the 17th, the 18th. So we will have to see if that holds up. That's a 2-day snow event and then an explosive storm system moving across the south. And this is where we have to kind of cut it off at, all right, this is as far as really the GFS is super reliable, in my opinion. I might have gave him a day or two, but the thinking at GFS is a huge storm system racing up the northeast by 420. A high pressure system up there following in with a cold front after that. That's right, a cold front in late April. Snow flurries are possible for parts of New York. No! Oh my gosh. Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum. It just breaks my heart. High pressure across the south, things dry out towards the end of this month, which, hey, the good news is that we started off with a lot of severe weather. That's not the good news. The good news is that it looks like April is trying to dry up a little bit, and that maybe we won't be as stormy as once thought. Now, April 22nd, 23rd is a far way out, but still, you got to like what GFS is thinking. Here we have spring-like temperatures through Wednesday, beautiful, and then, of course, the plain states get cool again freezing temperatures overnight in the Northwest and across Colorado, which is more chances for snow. Pretty much spring, but man, that cold front really pushes down deep south, keeping that heat along the East Coast and in the South, keeping the northern plains, central plains, and the Ohio Valley fair, and the Northeast also getting decent 50s and 60s. I'll take that all day, but nothing real crazy warm. All that deep South heat is even, I mean, look at this. Mid-60s for highs on April 17th in the deep South. That just don't seem right. It seems a little cool. And then we had that storm system moving up the East Coast into the Northeast. You see it right there in your temperature map. That rain, that wind is changing. And look, right behind it, that high pressure system I was telling you about. So there is a cold front trying to make its way into the United States on April 20th. It's trying. The good news is there is some much, much warmer weather building up behind it. So maybe, just maybe, we have one more gasp of old man winter and cranky cold spring before we start kicking and shaking this weather pattern here in the lower 48, because I am sick of the snow and the cold, and I want to go out and work out in the yard and get it looking good again and blah, blah, blah. Actually, no, I don't, because I got plenty of work to do in the house. So that's going to do it for tonight's report. I'd like to say hello to a few folks out there. Edward, very enthusiastic gardener. Pete, how you doing? Good to see you. Shirley Davis as well. Some new faces out there. There's my wife, Mari. Hello. Good to see you in the chat there. Knife Collector, a pleasure as always. Richard Davidson, thank you guys. Also, thanks to the mods who showed up tonight to help keep things in order. I really appreciate the support we do get on this channel from you folks. Even if we're 4 times a week or 2 times a week, you guys are here and we appreciate the support. And keep liking, subscribing, and sharing our videos. And let's get the word out about solar forcing impacting the climate and not CO2. Because the new research is becoming more apparent and it's having more light being shed on it. We are seeing the sun solar cycles do indeed impact climate here on Earth. Until next time, guys, we will talk soon. Take care.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.